Welcome to the Women in Wellness podcast. This is your place to get the latest up-to-date health and wellness information specifically for women, while providing you practical tools you can implement today. I'm Dr. Caitlin Sazowski, and I wanted to personally thank you for spending part of your day with me. Hello, Women in Wellness. It is Dr. Caitlin, and today I have a guest with me that we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. And you guys have heard me and Dr. Mindy and Dr. Sonia talk about it in the past. It's something that comes up because it is such an important topic, especially in today's day and age with just what we're exposed to. So we're going to be talking about toxicity and proper detox. And you guys know that there's a multitude of different ways to detox, different ways, and not all of them are equivalent. So today I have with me Sinclair Kennally. Kennally?
You're okay.
Who is a certified toxicity and detox specialist with a background in functional nutrition and the CEO of Vision Nation. She believes that toxins are the root cause of many of our health epidemics today, and I could not agree more. So thank you so much for being with me. I'm super excited for the topic and the direction that we're going to take this conversation. So thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure, Dr. Caitlin. I love to help people with this. So.
Awesome. So how did you get into detox and toxicity, and what brought you into this realm?
Oh, definitely the hard way.
Isn't that what always happens?
I think for us healers, there's something that happens where you've got a deep intention to support and help people in the public, and you got to earn your stripes so that you come at it with compassion and depth. Because the practitioners that haven't been through it are not as useful.
Well, they just don't get the struggle. And I think that's the biggest part, is they don't understand the real struggle, the ups and downs, because healing is not just a linear, mechanism. I wish it was. And if anybody knows how to make healing of any disease or any symptom linear, reach out to me, please.
Yeah, that's one of the first thing I tell new folks, new students is, this is not going to be a linear path.
If only it was. So what is it that, and we're going to talk about a bunch of things, but what is it that you really would like, my listeners to understand that we're going to talk about today, so that they can get grounded and rooted in our conversation?
I think it's really important to understand, I had this vague sense because my dad was an environmentalist, and, I grew up with sort of an awareness in California that toxins were bad. And that was kind of in the background, like, oh, okay, that's not great. You don't want too much of that around. But what I didn't understand until I got deep into this work, trying to heal myself from multiple complex chronic illness diagnoses, is that toxins each have their own set of behaviors once they enter your system. And they're like tiny little bombs that go off over and over again. And your body is not usually in a position, it will attempt immediately to excrete them in a way that your body was designed to get out waste, through our proper detox channels. But there's simply too many of them, with over 84,000 chemicals now registered. And we're importing 250 pounds of chemicals per person per day into the US, which is insane.
That's
right?
Gross. That's so gross.
It doesn't even count fuel, herbicides, or pesticides. I know, right? And that's the EPA's own figures. So we are simply getting exposed too much every day for our bodies to keep up. And our bodies also didn't evolve with these substances. So while we do have our own amazing complex detox processes, we just don't have those detox enzymes to go after things like aluminum, which is in our processed food. It's in our water. It's now, in our air. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's in the do not speak term of VACCINES in the medical community. VACCINES.
Yes, those lovely adjuvants. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Exactly. And so it matters how toxins come into the body, what pathway they take. And it also matters how they interact with each other, because there's secondary and tertiary reactions that create damage in the body once toxins interact with each other. So your body's job, if it can't get toxins out right away, the way it tries to, is to store it away, tuck it away, get it as far away from your vital organs as possible so that you can keep functioning. Your body is brilliant. So however much you might feel like, if you're struggling with a chronic illness right now or chronic symptoms, I used to have this self-talk like, oh, my body's betraying me. Why is my body failing me? And what I didn't understand was my body is absolutely brilliant. It still knows how to take care of me underneath all of this. It never forgets how. I just needed to support it so that we could thrive in these modern times. So once it gets tucked away, it's still causing damage, but to a lesser extent, because your body's trying to keep certain chemicals apart from each other, because we have over 20,000 different toxic substances internally at any given time. That's insane.
It is crazy. And I tell my clients all the time, who have these chronic diseases, look, I know you're super frustrated with your body, but it is saving you right now. If it was not doing this, you would not be here. So it's frustrating when we're going through it, but it's really fascinating when you understand why it's doing it.
Yeah. And so when we make that crucial transition from, I'm just going to survive this day, I've just got to muddle through these symptoms, I've got to push myself to get through so I can, manage my obligations to my family, my career, everything. If we go from that, mentality to, okay, I'm going to investigate, I'm going to explore, I'm going to really dig into how can I be in the driver's seat of my own health. I know that's a difficult, I was too exhausted, honestly. I had totally given up, that I was not in a position to do that. So I was very thankful that my partner, Michael, did not give up. We call him the solve 'em problem, because he just wants to get to the bottom of everything. So whether it's you or a family member, or maybe you're that family member that's investigating for your loved ones, how does this work? What's going to actually move the needle and provide some relief and some long-term improvement?
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's so important. And the biggest thing is don't give up. It's easy to want to give up, especially when you've tried multiple things, nothing's working, you're feeling like even worse as the years goes on, but there's somebody that has something out there that you just haven't found yet that you need. So please don't give up. So with that being said, what are some things that people can do to start limiting their exposures before we get into the detox? Because I always say you cannot detox properly if you're still being exposed. And the analogy that I use is you cannot dry off while you're still in the shower. So, right? Doesn't it work? Like you can't dry off if you're still in the shower, which means like you can't detox if you're still exposing yourself to these toxins. So like, what are some of the most toxic substances that we're exposed to, and how can we limit them on our day-to-day basis?
That's a fabulous question. And I love it so much for so many reasons. We always talk about how to remove your ongoing exposure before we can start to release, because you want to be excreting more toxins per day than you're taking in. And this is not to teach you guys to be afraid, everyone listening. It's to empower you, because yes, the more you understand about this, the more you realize I'm going to have some ongoing daily exposure that I cannot control, from air pollution, from, certain things in the water that I have to interact with, from, even my organic produce is going to be irrigated with fluoridated water and, other unfortunate toxins that the municipality is not designed to filter out, like microplastics. So what can I do? Because even though I can't control those things, I'm still the number one source of toxic exposure, right? So it's a process. I always tell people, start opening your windows an hour a day. It's free, because your home is off-gassing, and it off-gasses for years after your latest paint job, or, your couch that you bought 2 years ago. The foam is still, every time you sit on it, it's kind of going, poof, here's a little bit more, VOCs and, perchlorates and weird stuff coming out. So flush out the air, inside the house because it's several hundred times or several 100% more toxic than the outside air. That's free. And yes, you can get something like Austin Air or, Air Doctor or the IQ ones or the Molecule Air. There's several brands on the market that will help. But the free thing is think an hour a day. Keep the air moving. Another thing I would say is to switch to distilled water, because whatever your filter is claiming to do, it's not working hard enough for you. So, and that includes water that you cook with, right? Mm-hmm. So you may have a whole house filter that you've invested in and you're very proud of it. And that's wonderful for things like your laundry, your showers, things where you're going to be exposed anyway. But for the water that you actually drink and the water that you cook with, I'm looking at my kitchen over there.
You're like, wait, what's over there? I do
I'm
that
visualizing
too.
myself cooking right now. Visualize the clean kitchen. That's what you want to start out with a clean slate. And there's a lot of myths out there and misinformation that distilled water is not safe. That's been dispelled by Cornell University, by Yale, by Harvard. There's a lot of studies out there that explain, no, actually distilled water is quite safe. And yes, it does pick up inorganic minerals and junk in your system, but it does not pick up the bioavailable organic minerals that you so desperately need to function well.
Yeah, because aren't they saying that distilled water, like reverse osmosis and things like that, is quote unquote dead because there's no minerals, none of the minerals are left in there?
Right. So it's a common misconception. We want a high mineral, like a mineral rich diet, but our bodies want to get those minerals broken down by plants and eat them from plants or from animal flesh, because that makes it actually immediately bioavailable to us. If it's still in a larger format, it's very difficult for our bodies to break down and use. And in a toxic environment, your body's going to view like big chunks of iron, for example, as like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. I can't use it. And I'm just going to store it, instead of actually putting it into the cells where it needs to go. So we recommend using trace minerals to supplement that are already bioavailable, because we're all on the back foot in terms of mineral consumption. Mm-hmm. Ever since World War II, we started using petrochemicals to make our food look bigger and beautiful and more green. They actually called it the Green Revolution because they had this oil surplus after World War II and they had to figure out what to do with it. And they turned it into petrochemicals that we then sprayed on our fields. So it made the produce look better, but it wasn't actually more nutrient dense. And the way we've commercially farmed, of course, we've destroyed our soil. And so we are now eating food that is far less mineral rich than it was even a few decades ago. Mm-hmm. So we recommend supplementing with trace minerals that are bioavailable and actually making sure that your water is super clean and distilled. That way, it doesn't have microplastics in it. It doesn't have antibiotic waste. It doesn't have fluoride. These are things.
Fluoride is my biggest pet peeve.
It's a nightmare, right?
It is the worst neurotoxin that we expose ourselves to daily.
Yes. And the American Medical Association even acknowledges, oh, yes, this is a potent neurotoxin.
But it's okay in your water.
The CDC still counts that as one of the top 10 medical advancements of the 20th century. Uh-huh. Like, are you guys talking to each other?
Nope. Yeah. Unfortunately, no.
Yeah. And so most water filters are completely unable to filter out fluoride. Even something like a Berkey filter where you pay more to add on a fluoride attachment, that you're using aluminum in that filter. And so you're exposing yourself to higher levels of aluminum, and it only works for several weeks worth of water, and that's it.
Yep. That's why I put the halt on buying a Berkey. I was like, this sounds amazing. And then I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So for people that are listening and getting, overwhelmed, because that's easy to do, just understand that this is a process, and you're going to, learning about toxicity and detox is a long learning curve. And the more you celebrate every little win of information that you get along the way, the more empowered you'll be to take care of yourself and protect your family. Yep. So it's okay to be overwhelmed. Listen back to this later, if it's going too fast. And also just try a distiller off of Amazon. Return it in 30 days if you don't like how you feel afterwards. It's a very low risk Okay.
And yeah, I think so too. And honestly, I like the taste of it better. That's what we ended up installing was a reverse osmosis.
Mhm.
Um, because there is no taste. And that's what I like. Like, I don't necessarily want to taste chlorine and fluoride and all these other things in
Oh,
my
that I know.
water. So, but the thing that I always tell people, the easiest thing to decrease your toxic exposure is stop using dryer sheets and stop using like
Yes.
Glade plugins. And
Yes.
like the Febreze smell, like that stuff stays forever. It gets into your fabrics and you're constantly breathing it in, not to
Yeah.
mention absorbing it when it's on your clothes. So,
Yeah. Your lungs and your skin are not an effective barrier for that, right?
mhm,
And they're hormone disrupting. I mean, it's just a cascade of nightmare effects. So yes,
mhm.
stop bringing toxins into the home, start reading your labels, right? And you could start switching over things like your cookware from, the Teflon pans, which are super neurotoxic, right? It's very hard on your liver, to stainless steel, one pan at a time. Work with, cook with tempered glass, like your grandma's casserole dishes.
Mhm.
Those are awesome.
I love my old like vintage ones. When my dad asked me what I wanted, I was like, I just want those bowls. I don't care about anything else. I want those bowls.
Yes. I have some of my grandmother's too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And yes, you can switch over things like your makeup a little bit at a time, but really think less is more.
Mhm.
I still wear makeup, but I wear like maybe a quarter of what I used to. So it's also about like if your body doesn't recognize it as food, it's a substance that creates more work for your body.
Mhm.
So how can you change your hair routine, even if you have to change your hairstyle, so that you're doing less to your head every day and piling on chemicals for the women out there? Love you. And make it easy on yourself. And yes, the laundry piece is huge. So we talk about things like slowly switching over to organic bedding because you're sleeping on, these things that are going to keep you're breathing in this weird stuff all night long.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Oh,
but
I'm
the
in a
vitamin
hotel right
investment,
now and I'm having the worst sleep because of everything that I'm sleeping on. And when you're like, open the windows, I'm like, oh, I'd love to. But
right? Yeah,
but
yeah,
it does make a huge difference, guys, because when I go to hotels because of work and things like that, because you can't avoid it, it makes you probably can hear me. Like I'm super stuffy from everything that's happening in this room and what I'm sleeping on. But
yeah.
luckily, I have things that I can take to help uh, decrease my exposure or decrease my accumulation is what I'm unfortunately needing to do at the moment. But
Exactly.
little
And you will
steps.
find tiny steps. Yeah. And you will find that the more you do this, the more resilient you are. So
Mhm.
like I used to stay in a hotel room, and Michael and I would go somewhere for the weekend. It would take us both like weeks to recover. And now it's more like a day or two, like, oh yeah, that was a little irritating for my body. Now I'm fine.
Mhm. Yep.
So those are the basics about decreasing. But one last thing I'll say about the laundry piece is that if you are living in a household that's not on board with this and wants to still use things like Tide, or you have to share, laundry facilities with other households, you can use just a teaspoon of zeolite clay. It's very light colored. It's very cheap. You can get it on Amazon. Just a small amount will help absorb the toxins from other people's detergents so that your stuff comes out smelling like laundry and not like a weird chemical factory.
My gosh, when they say like on the commercials, your stuff will smell fresh for weeks. I'm like, why do I want my stuff smelling like this for 3 weeks? Like that that just tells me chemicals out the wazoo. Like,
Yeah,
oh
it's like
my
how
gosh.
cartoons would smell, right? It's like so weird and over the top and fake. Yeah.
Goodness. Okay, so outside of starting to do minor steps of reducing exposure and reading ingredients and, being more conscious of what we're purchasing and bringing into the house, what's the next step for actually detoxing those bioaccumulated toxins that have built up in our system, whether it be, on our organs, our nerve cells, in our fat cells,
Right.
wherever it may be?
So we want to think about how does the body want to detox stuff it doesn't want in the first place. We have predetermined detox channels and pathways, right?
Mhm.
And so your body's favorite way to excrete toxins is actually through your bowels. And so you want to make sure, like we always say, a moving stream runs clean. And that refers to your digestion as well as your lymph, right? So if you think about a stream, and you're always going to have some sediment at the bottom, but if the water's moving fast enough, all is well. The ducks are happy, the fish are happy, the water's clear. But if you start throwing in, food wrappers and soda cans and old beer bottles and stuff, it starts to clog up, and the ducks don't want to be there. The fish get sluggish and weird. The poop accumulates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's happening in your digestive tract as well as your lymph nodes, because you simply cannot process all of these toxins fast enough. And so it creates a stagnation and interrupts your body's ability to heal itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to think about draining from the bottom up. Adults in the US have between 5 and 20 pounds of caked feces.
Every time I hear that stat, I'm like, how do you have 20 pounds of toxic material sitting in your gut?
I know. Well, and that's why it's one of the many reasons why we're all bloated, right? As we age. And we think, oh, it's belly fat, I can't get it off. I just have to exercise more. Life is hard. It could actually be caked feces and all of the conditions that come along with that, with the standard American diet.
We'll talk about a few tips, I hope, on how to get the caked feces out. But outside of like pooping, why don't you tell people how often should they be pooping?
So healthy bowel movements should be between 1 and 3 times a day. And that may shock people.
It does. They go, what? I'm like, the number of meals you eat in a day is the number of times you should be pooping, is what I tell people.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And it should, and you want to think about your stool in terms of like, it should come out easily. It should be smooth. It should look like, firm frozen yogurt, like in and out.
Yep. Not sticky.
Right.
No oils. It shouldn't be green. We got to start looking
Caveat that I will say though, when you're doing deep detox work, your stool is going to look strange for a long time. And it should, because you want to get the old stuff out.
That is true. But that's only if you're detoxing. If you're not doing anything and that's what your stools look like, there's something else happening.
Yeah, you need support. Yeah, for sure. So you think about eating foods that are going to help support that colon getting cleaned out. And so you can't think about draining the digestive system without starting to learn about bile. Bile gets really sluggish in the presence of toxins. And bile we think of as a yucky word in the English language, but bile is actually liquid gold. It's an expensive substance that your liver produces to help flush through as you digest. It breaks down fats and it washes out toxins to help, dump out through your bowels. So the problem is, because it's expensive to make, your body wants to reuse it and recycle it. So, it flushes through and then it comes back and gets stored in the gallbladder. But all those gross, weird microplastics and neurotoxins and heavy metals tend to stick in the bile. Yeah, they don't flush out the way that your body thinks waste should. And so that actually accumulates in your gallbladder and liver. And your body's smart and knows like, okay, this stuff is really damaging. I've got to do something with it. And so it starts covering it with cholesterol, which is made in the liver. And that's how you start to get stones, gallbladder stones and liver stones. And those compact over time and make your bile even more sluggish. So you're having to work even harder to flush out toxins, to digest your food, to get out the old feces. And it actually creates the perfect breeding ground for infections and parasites.
Oh yeah. And parasites, infections love toxins. That's where they hide, because the body doesn't touch the like the heavy metals like mercury and aluminum. So those little parasites and those little buggies make homes in and around the stored heavy metals, because they're like, we're safe here. Great. But
yeah, exactly.
They wreak havoc.
Your immune system dies. Is like all your little immune system cells, the closer they get to toxins, that they die. So your parasites and your infections are actually a symbiotic gift to your body that your immune system allows to flourish, because they do really well in toxic, low oxygen anaerobic environments, right? Yep. So that's how we get this biofilm and these parasites and these long-standing, we call them chronic infections, where your body can't kill it, but the infection isn't strong enough to kill you. Mm-hmm. And actually adults have between 12 and 20 chronic infections at any given time distributed throughout the body. And I actually think it's a lot higher than that with the population that we work with.
Oh, definitely. And that's why people, they don't feel well, but their doctors go, no, there's nothing wrong. You're fine. But you have no
your lab's
energy.
fine. Yeah.
Can't sleep. You're not pooping. You're bloated. You're cranky. You have brain fog.
Anxious, irritable. Yeah, exactly.
Your hormones are like all over the place.
Yeah.
You're
And we
fine.
chalk it up to stress, like hashtag 2020. Life is really hard right now. But when you look at like what's happened to our culture, we're blaming it on social media, but really it's people don't feel well.
They don't. No, I think that there's a lot of factors into that, and stress is a big component. Don't get me wrong, ladies, but
but this is
not
the
only
part that's not
thing.
getting talked about.
Yes.
Yeah. We understand that stress has negative effects on our health, but what we're not talking about is the cascade effect of this toxic buildup that slows down your body's ability to heal itself, your body's ability to regenerate its own tissue. Like glyphosate, that number one herbicide, we're using over 4 billion pounds of it a year annually worldwide. If your cells come into contact with glyphosate, within 15 minutes, you can actually watch it under a microscope. They start distributing cancer morphogenic properties, which means they forget who they are.
Yep.
They are no longer able to raise their hand and say, I need to be repaired. I need to be replaced, because they can't talk to each other. We have these little cameras that, so we actually are beings of light, which is really cool. Yes, we talk to our cells talk to each other with biochemical substances for sure. And we also talk to ourselves at the bioelectrical level, sending electrical signals. But most of our communication is actually done at the level of light. It has to be that fast in order for our bodies to work well. And those little lenses that shoot signals of light to each other and catch those light signals and communicate to one another actually turn off. You can watch the lights go out when we're exposed to glyphosate.
Isn't that crazy?
It's insane, but it makes so much sense because we now have glyphosate because it's water soluble. It's been tested throughout the US. We have it in 75% of our air samples and 75% of our water samples. And given the worldwide usage of this stuff and the way
it's in our atmosphere.
Yeah. It's fair to say that that's not just specific to the US. So,
but yet other countries are banning it, like Mexico. Come on, America. Come on, Canada. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. Certain countries in Europe have had this ban for several years, and Mexico did it last year. Congrats, Mexico. Well done.
Yeah. That's amazing. Maybe I'll be moving to Mexico.
Right. We've discussed it. All of our friends and students, they're always checking in with us. So where are we moving to? Is it actually going to be clean and safe?
People will be like, so where are we creating a new colony? I'm like, I know, right? Like, come on.
Just want to grow our own food, have our own little cafe.
I know.
Preferably near a beach.
Oh, absolutely. On moving water. It has to be all those negative ions and.
Yeah, exactly.
But, okay, so we got to poop. We got to make sure that our gallbladder is moving, because otherwise when it reabsorbs the toxins that we expose ourselves to on a daily basis, which is why we got to limit our toxic exposure. Otherwise we get gallstones or liver stones, and those just continue to compile. They continue to get worse. So what are some things, because you mentioned a few super cool things when it comes to food, with helping digestion and helping the bladder and helping just that overall liver, gallbladder, gut detox pathway, because that's only one of them. But eating a certain way or figuring out how you need to eat based on different, what's the word I'm looking for? Properties of food. That's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, such a great question. We actually created a free challenge around this called Listen to Your Gut. And where we help you learn how to create your own personalized list of power foods, so that you can listen to this through a framework of it's vegan friendly, vegetarian friendly, carnivore friendly, keto, paleo. This is not about a diet religion when we think about how to support our digestion.
I love that, a diet religion.
We are diet agnostic, okay? We want you to feel good, which means your body has to work well. So I'm vegetarian. Michael, we joke, is a steakarian. He loves steak and eats a lot of fish as well. So
Well, you
we
guys sound a lot like me and my husband, except I'm not
really,
vegetarian. I'm mostly plant-based, but I do still eat animal protein.
yeah, yeah. And I'm vegetarian and mostly vegan. I do use ghee and occasionally some goat cheese.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, goat cheese, yum.
right, so good. So when we think about foods that support digestion, it's going to be different answers for different people because all of us are starting off on the back foot where we've been irritated for decades. People our age, for example, if you're over, or actually that's not a useful way to say it. For at least the last 30 years, you've been constantly subjected to toxins in your food, and it's been distorted in a very strange way. Okay. So we see that show up in different ways for different age populations, but we're all dealing with the same set of factors. Like kids are being born now with crazy food allergies and skin rashes. It's just ridiculous
Well,
what they
there's
have
like
to deal with.
300 chemicals found in cord blood of newborns, and I'm like, oh, good,
Exactly. Yes,
good.
and 97% of placentas studied. Did you see this new study? Were found to contain high levels of microplastics.
Oh gosh.
I know, our little ones. But this is happening to all of us, right? So we teach you in the free challenges is why we had to create it, because the list of foods is going to be different for each person, whether you've developed histamine sensitivities or other food sensitivities along the way, whether you've developed sensitivities to oxalates, which are like little plant poisons, and they're kind of shaped like little sawtooths. And those show up in high amounts in things like dark leafy greens, so like kale, chard, spinach, things that's why the green smoothie revolution may not work well for you at all. And you may already know that, like, no, that's a no-go for me. That would
Well,
be
that's like 90% of my diet.
well, good. Then you don't have an oxalate sensitivity. That's fantastic.
Oh my gosh, I would cry if I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can still get your greens in, but not through those dark leafy greens.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with histamine issues, it's a lot less, it's a lot more opaque because things that seem innocuous, like strawberries and bananas, are actually really high in histamine. And, avocados, things that we, revere as our modern, health foods.
Mm-hmm.
Spinach is another one with high histamine. So if spinach is a nightmare for you, I really encourage you to look into histamine issues and oxalate sensitivities. So the list of rules for you may be different, and you may be lectin sensitive. Different blood types have different levels of lectin sensitivity. Lectins are also plant poisons that, for the most part, the way we used to harvest them, we waited until they were actually ripe. The plants had these lectins that were its own defense system so that animals and humans wouldn't eat them until they reached ripeness. Like lemons have high amounts of lectins until they become ripe. And then the plants actually dissolve those lectins because they want the fruit to be harvested and they want the seeds to distribute. But now we're picking everything commercially, mm-hmm. so that it can be transported and stored in a very economically advantageous way, but it's not actually great for our bodies. So you may have sensitivities to lectins. They also are gut irritants, and like beans are high in lectins. And large populations of the world lived on beans really successfully. But when you look at how they did it, like South America, beans and rice, a staple, right? But for the most part, they pressure cooked them.
Well, they soak them too.
Yeah, which will also dissolve the lectins, right? Yep. Exactly. Or even like Italian cooking, the proper way to make a tomato sauce is to skin and de-seed the tomato. Well, that's where the lectins are, is in the skin and seeds. So, our traditional cultures were brilliant at navigating this intuitively, through trial and error. So it's not that lectins are horrible, but they might be a short-term irritant for you. And so you want to learn to eat around those if you have a sensitivity. But let's look at things that a wide portion of the population need to think about. Everybody needs to be thinking about bile flow. That's what we've been talking about this whole time, is digestion. A moving stream runs clean. Let's keep the bile flow moving, because bile becomes sluggish in a toxic environment. And you've got to have that flow to get the toxins out and to keep your digestion moving. So you want to incorporate bitter foods back into your diet. We've lost this traditional sense of bitter foods being just as valuable as sweet foods. Mm-hmm. And when you eat bitter foods, it's sent right in the mouth. You get this signal to your digestion. Okay, it's time to start moving our bile. Time for bile flow because we need to digest something. So if all you did was take bitters, there's so many different good ones on the market. My favorite is Bitter X from Quicksilver Scientific, but you can find this, in your local health food store. Before you eat, just, squeeze a dropper into your mouth, let it sit there for a second. It's going to taste gross in the beginning. Now I love it. This is,
yes, it is it sucks the moisture out of my mouth. When I first started doing it, I was like, ooh.
Right.
And
I was
like
one of those people that like lived on grains and only wanted sweet things. Like, is it dessert time? That's all I care about. So I thought bitters were horrifying.
we use we'll give some of our clients with massive cravings Genema.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, they're like, this is terrible. I'm like, I know, just stick with it for a little while. I promise you'll notice a difference. And then they're like, oh my gosh, that actually really helped with curbing that need for sweet.
Yes.
So, because we have to retrain our taste buds, guys. Like, we don't want the bitter and the sour anymore. We just want the sweet because of how our food is made. So there are things that we're going to have to maybe do that are less than fun in the beginning, but it does get better. Just stick with it.
It's true. Yeah. And so if you start working in bitters in a dropful every day or in your diet, incorporating bitter foods, so that would be dandelion greens. If you don't love that taste, you can kind of sneak it into your salad a little bit at a time. Try arugula. That's a much gentler taste and it's still a bitter. So arugula is much better tolerated by everyone with gut sensitivities because it's low histamine, low oxalate, it's lectin free, and it helps move your bile. So step away from the spinach, pick up the arugula. Okay.
Oh, and it has such a beautiful peppery flavor.
It's lovely, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So that's a good one. Asparagus, artichokes, I said dandelion greens, even chamomile can help because it's so anti-inflammatory and supportive of the digestion. And it's also a little bit of a bile mover. So you can drink your dandelion or chamomile tea if you prefer it that way. Just remember that you want to go loose leaf and organic to stay away from the
Yep. And make sure that the bag it's in, you said loose leaf, but if you're purchasing it in a bag, the bag has to be free of corn and GMO and that kind of stuff. So
exactly.
That's why you recommended the loose leaf, right?
Exactly. That and tea bags have been shown to contain high amounts of, bleached chemicals and pesticides. They're totally unregulated. So you could have paid extra for this awesome organic tea, but if it's in a crappy bag, your body's still stressing out.
Uh-huh. What's your favorite way to steep tea then? Do you use a stainless steel?
Stainless steel ball. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really easy. Pick that up, in your health food store or on Amazon for like $1. It lasts forever. Just make sure it's steel.
I was going to say, I have some super cute ones. And my in-laws brought me this super funky straw from, I don't even know, like the Middle East somewhere. But you put your tea in like the cup or whatever, and you just stick the straw and you drink through the straw and it just filters out the tea leaves. And I was like, this is amazing because now I don't have to like clean out like the packed ball, and it's pretty cool. So if you guys can find it, there's a straw. I'll see if I still have the box and I'll post what it's called.
Sure, it exists on the internet. It sounds amazing. I've never heard of that one.
I didn't either until they brought it back for me as a gift because they know I love tea. They bring me scarves and tea.
Yeah, so those are some examples of easy bile boosting foods to bring back into your diet on a daily basis. You want to think bitters every day. Whether you're, cheating and you're using a tincture, or you're incorporating into your actual cooking, or both. Ideally both, because your body's on the back foot. And what bitters do is not only help get the bile moving and flush it through your system, but also help you build bile faster. And that's what we want. We don't want this sluggish or weird bile. We want to give your body a reason to incorporate fresh bile and give and empower your liver to make new clean stuff.
What are your thoughts? I'm going to ask you a quick question on like bile pushes. So using like PC to help push it out, especially if somebody has either a sluggish bile or they have bile stones or gallbladder stones, not bile stones.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Oop, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you came back.
All right, I was trying to mute so I could clear my throat.
Oh, yeah.
Podcast fail.
Oh, no, you're good.
So we're a big fan of liver flushes to help encourage old gallstones and liver stones to help empower your body to release those, because they don't come out on their own. You need to support your body to do that. But I want to give a huge disclaimer here. You want to prepare your body to do those, okay? And there's a lot of factors to put into place. So I want to see you do that with some guidance, so that you prepare your body ahead of time. One gentle thing that you can do in an ongoing way to support your body to break down those old gallstones and liver stones is to make sure you're getting malic acid in your diet consistently. So malic acid is found in green apples. That's a great way to get it. So even if you're eating like green apples solid as a snack and sprinkling a little cinnamon on them, it's a really low sugar treat or snack. It's, kids tolerate it really well, obviously.
I love, those are those and Honeycrisp are my favorite.
Yeah, you can take malic acid as a powder or a capsule also. Highly recommend that if you know that, signs of sluggish bile include nausea, not being able to tolerate fatty foods well, constipation, or alternatively, going back and forth between constipation and diarrhea, bloating, food sensitivities, feeling like it takes a long time to digest your food. So feeling full for hours afterwards, and yet somehow still feeling like hangry and irritable between meals, headaches, migraines, there's a lot of skin issues that can be indications of sluggish bile, whether it's a rash or pigment issues or scaliness, or even, eczema and psoriasis always have that underpinning of sluggish bile. So these are signs that you want to take extra care, and you want to incorporate something. It's a very cheap supplement to incorporate into your day. Or if you're already juicing, throw in a green apple every day, because that's the lowest sugar option to get your malic acid. And that will empower your body to gently try to start breaking down those stones in a food-based way, without, if you're not ready to, do your first liver flush under someone's guidance and care.
Oh, yes. You guys don't jump into this. It's just like when I say heavy metal detoxing, you cannot do this on your own. There's a certain way that has to be done. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to cause a backup elsewhere. And I've seen, I don't even know how many people get worse when they try and do it on their own, because they heard something online or their health food stores had a sale on XYZ. And there's certain things that you just don't want to take the chance and doing it on your own. It's not worth it.
Well, and you have to understand with something like heavy metals, there are substances that mobilize heavy metals out of storage in your body. That doesn't mean they catch them and safely escort them out the door. That's why you need binders on board. You need both mobilizers and binders. So
I was going to say, that is my biggest pet peeve with cilantro and chlorella.
Oh my God, tell me about it. Yes.
They are amazing mobilizers. They are not binders. They will not hold it for you to get it out of your body. And I get into, I don't know if heated discussions is the right word, but I'm like, yes, they move things, but they don't move them out. They're just moving them, let's say, from your liver to your kidney now. So it's still in your body. It's still breaking down. It's just creating problems in another place. So making sure that you guys understand the person you're working with understands the difference between those, because otherwise you could be in a world of hurt.
Well, and an easy way to know if you've got the support on board and the person you're working with actually knows what they're doing is are you getting detox symptoms? Are you getting the detox flu? Are you getting rashes? Are you feeling sick? You should not be feeling sick on a detox. The detox flu or Herxheimer reactions means that adjustments need to be made to your protocol so that you are safely excreting and your body is supported. You deserve that. And that's how real detox works.
Yeah, you don't push through it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes I will say that I have clients who they do get those symptoms, but immediately changes are made because it's telling us either the liver or the gallbladder or whatever is happening, like their skin, it's starting to express on their skin in a rash. We got to either incorporate new binders or make sure other things are happening. Like pooping, like that's number one before you detox. You have to be pooping regularly.
Yes, exactly. So
So
maybe this is a good time to zoom out and talk about those stages of detox, because there's so much information coming at the consumer nowadays. And the word detox itself is even unregulated. So you might be thinking, you know, beginners, which doesn't sound like your audience, but newbies might be taken in by like a detox tea. Like, okay, this means I'm detoxing. Or a juice cleanse, that means I'm detoxing. In fact, we wrote a blog post, the top 12 detox myths, on our site to help combat some of this confusion.
awesome.
So if you guys are still trying to wrap your heads around what is a real detox, what is or isn't detox, you can go ahead and read that. That's an easy primer. So I got excited about this, but do we have time to quickly summarize stages of detox?
I got like 5 minutes.
Excellent. Okay. So when you think about doing deep detox work, it is a systematic approach to flushing your body out so that you can be who you really are. You can have your own emotions undistorted. You can have the energy that is your divine right. And you can easily repair and replenish yourself. So you've got to start at the beginning. You've got to start remineralizing your body, you know, really taking care of your nutrition so that your body isn't starting on that back foot like we all have been, undernourished, so that you have the energy to detox systematically and also at the cellular level. And so it starts with actually getting nutrition and energy back on board and removing that ongoing exposure wherever you can, whether it's throwing out those quote unquote all natural candles that are really just, you know, toxic, commercially grown soy. Yeah, with lead wicks. Like, no, never buy something that says all natural. So removing exposure, replenishing your nutrients so you have the energy to do this. And then ladies, it is all about drainage. Drainage is your buddy. Starting from the bottom, working your way up. So obsessing over your poop is basically a requisite for a while. And making sure that you are flushing your bile on a regular basis. That can be folded into your day with your bitters and your bitter foods. And then making sure that you actually ease into the mobilization of the toxins, so that in however much you're mobilizing, you have just as many binders and binder strategies on board, because each binder has a certain set of behaviors, right? So some binders only pick up certain kinds of toxins. So you really want to do your homework and make sure, okay, if I'm mobilizing, I got to have something on board to pick up the mycotoxins and the waste from, you know, weird bugs that have been dumping poop in my body and creating further dysbiosis. I got to, you know, have a heavy metal binder on board. I got to have something to clean up the microplastics and the tiny amounts of radiation that I've been exposed to. Just as a basic, right? And then you can start playing with mobilizing more and more. So you don't want to do something like just a juice cleanse with no binders on board, because that's going to, you know, give the cells the nutrition they've been craving, but also encourage,
especially if you're juicing cilantro.
Oh my God, I know. Yeah. Yeah, true.
So can you just reiterate, like, detoxing, is this like a month-long thing?
So
month-long thing?
I will say this, wherever you're starting, do something that you're willing to do. Okay. Detoxing it depends on how your body has, what kind of symptoms you're working with, but you want to think about this as a long-term lifestyle, not an event.
Right.
You can play with 3-day cleanses or 10-day cleanses. What those are really doing is saying, how can I knock down my inflammation a little bit so my body has a chance to catch its breath? That's all it's doing. It's not a real detox. Those are just, you know, playing around with inflammation levels. Okay. So if you lived your way into this problem, you're going to live your way out. right? And so you want to think about deep detox in terms of months, not days. And you want to think about always having some ongoing detox support, because there is some pollution you just can't get away from daily. And you want to be getting more toxins out than you're getting in every day for you to be healthy.
Absolutely. Well, Sinclair, where can my women find you?
Yeah, so our site is called Vision Nation. So it's vision-nation.com. You can find us on Instagram at The Vision Nation. And we drop a little detox inspiration and little things you need to know. And we're also starting a free Facebook group this week called Gut Check. And so that's going to be really fun. Gut Check.
Awesome.
Code your symptoms, live the low tox life.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I would love to have you back on and we can talk more about incorporating like lymphatics into this, because that's part of it.
I know, we didn't even get into that today. That's what we wanted to talk about.
Hey, it's all good because there's just so much when it comes to detox. And so I think, we went pretty deep, and I know that my listeners are going to have to listen to this 1 or 2 times because there was a lot of information. So thank you so much for being with me. I really appreciate your expertise. And all right, ladies.
Somebody who really understands detox, because then we can really get into it.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, ladies, happy detoxing. Start with not re-intoxicating yourself. And I'll see you next time on the Women in Wellness. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Women in Wellness as much as I did. If you did, please leave a review and a rating so that others can also benefit from the information being shared. Make sure to subscribe as new content is released on Women in Wellness Wednesdays. And if you want to connect with us, go online to womeninwellness.com. That's women, the letter N, wellness.com. I look forward to seeing you next time.